The supermarket was alive with the small orchestra of daily life, the hum of chatter, the rhythmic beeps of scanners, and the faint rustle of grocery bags. Nothing about that afternoon hinted that something extraordinary was about to happen. Then, a man in a sharp tailored suit stepped forward at the register. His posture was confident, his watch gleaming, and his expression calm, the kind of calm that comes from years of never hearing the word no. He swiped his sleek black card, once, twice, and then, a single word blinked across the screen: declined. The air changed instantly. Conversations faded. A few heads turned. Someone snickered. The cashier laughed, sharp, loud, cruel. The man's shoulders stiffened as color drained from his face. He lowered his gaze, trying to shrink inside his own expensive clothes. No one knew who he was: Alexander Grant, billionaire, builder of empires, a man whose name gleamed from the tops of skyscrapers. None of that mattered now. Beside him stood a small girl in a faded purple shirt, her hand clutching his. Her wide eyes flicked between the laughing cashier and the silent crowd. She didn't see wealth or failure. She saw a man breaking. Then she did something no one else dared to do. She reached into her tiny pocket and changed a billionaire's life forever. If you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, listen closely. This isn't just a story about a man who lost his pride, it's about a child who gave him back his humanity. The line at the supermarket was long but ordinary: parents with restless toddlers, teenagers scrolling through phones, and elderly couples chatting about dinner plans. Outside, sunlight filtered through the large glass windows, painting golden stripes across the tiled floor. Alexander Grant waited patiently, a rare occurrence for a man used to snapping fingers and getting results. He wore a charcoal gray suit that whispered wealth, polished shoes, and an air of quiet power. But behind that calm, something heavier lingered, a weariness that success could not cure. When it was finally his turn, he gave the cashier a polite nod and placed his groceries on the belt: bread, milk, apples, and a box of cereal. Simple things. Normal things. Maybe that's what he wanted, to feel human again, if only for a moment. The cashier, a young woman with tired eyes and too much attitude, scanned each item, tapping her nails impatiently on the counter. "That'll be $47.83, she said flatly. Alexander handed over his black card. It gleamed beneath the fluorescent light, a symbol of limitless power. He had used it in New York, Paris, Dubai. It never failed him, until now. A faint beep echoed, followed by silence. The screen flashed red. Declined. She tried again. Declined. The laughter began slowly, a snicker from a man in the next line, a chuckle from a teenager holding a soda. The cashier leaned back, smirking. "Guess even the rich have bad days, huh?" Alexander's chest tightened. His throat went dry. He could feel eyes burning into him from every direction: curiosity, judgment, mockery. It wasn't the money. It was the humiliation. He reached for his phone, pretending to check something, desperate for the moment to end. Beside him, a small girl tugged gently on his sleeve. She couldn't have been more than 7. Her brown hair was tied in uneven braids, and her purple shirt had a small tear near the hem. She looked up at him, not with pity, not with mockery, but with concern. "Are you okay, mister?" she asked softly. Alexander's breath hitched. "Yes," he lied. "It's just a mistake." The cashier rolled her eyes, clearly enjoying the show. "Next customer, please," she called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. But before the crowd could move, the little girl reached into her pocket. She pulled out a few wrinkled bills and a small handful of coins, the kind of savings that came from allowance, from chores, from dreams of candy or toys. With trembling hands, she placed them on the counter. "Please," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He needs it." The world stopped. Even the hum of the store seemed to fade. The cashier froze. The laughing teenager lowered his eyes. The man behind Alexander swallowed hard. For a moment, time itself bowed to kindness. Alexander stared at the little girl, his throat burning. He had written checks worth millions. He had bought companies, planes, mansions. But no gift had ever felt like this. His eyes blurred as emotion he hadn't known in years flooded his chest. "My dear," his voice cracked. "You don't have to, I want to," she interrupted gently. "Mom says we should help people, even if we don't know them." The cashier hesitated, shame flickering across her face. Silently, she bagged the groceries. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the soft clink of coins on the counter, the price of humility paid in innocence. When Alexander took the bags, his hands trembled. He knelt down so he was eye level with her. "Thank you," he whispered. "What's your name?" "Lila," she said shyly. "Lila," he repeated, as though memorizing it. "You've just reminded me what really matters." Outside, the cool wind brushed against his face, but his heart felt warmer than it had in years. The limousine waited at the curb, but Alexander didn't step inside. Instead, he turned to Lila and asked if he could walk her home. Her small hand slipped easily into his. They walked through quiet streets lined with worn houses and cracked sidewalks. Her home stood at the end, a small, faded building with peeling paint and a sagging porch. A woman stood outside hanging laundry, her tired smile brightening when she saw her daughter. "Lila. You're back," she called. Her voice carried both exhaustion and love. Alexander introduced himself simply, not as a billionaire, not as a tycoon, just Alex. He thanked her for raising such a remarkable daughter. The woman looked puzzled but smiled warmly, offering him a cup of tea. Inside, the house smelled of home-cooked soup and clean laundry. It was humble but full of warmth, something Alexander hadn't felt in years. That night, back in his mansion overlooking the city, Alexander couldn't sleep. He sat in the dark, replaying the moment over and over, the laughter, the humiliation, and the small hand offering him all she had got. He realized he'd spent decades building towers but never once looked down to see the people living in their shadows. By dawn, his decision was made. Weeks later, the world woke to shocking news. Alexander Grant, the ruthless billionaire, had announced the Lila Foundation, a global initiative to support struggling families. Groceries were paid off anonymously in stores nationwide. Rent debts vanished overnight. College scholarships appeared for children who never dreamed of higher education. Construction crews began repairing small-town homes. Quietly, humbly, Alexander himself appeared in local grocery stores, talking to clerks, shaking hands, listening. No cameras. No press. Just presence, and always, somewhere in his mind, he carried the image of a small girl in a purple shirt, her courage, her coins, her kindness. Lila's family never struggled again. But Alexander never flaunted it. He made sure her life was filled not with fame, but with dignity and opportunity. When she grew older, she became a teacher, helping children from families who had once felt invisible. Years passed. When people spoke of Alexander Grant, they no longer mentioned skyscrapers or profits. They spoke of that day, when a black card failed, and a child's heart succeeded. He left behind an empire, yes. But more importantly, he left behind a legacy of empathy, because sometimes, the smallest hands hold the greatest power, and sometimes, the richest man in the world is the one who learns how to give, not with money, but with heart.